Hey everybody, Ryan Medora here, and welcome to a lesson about bass soloing. If you're not comfortable with this, if you've never done it before, this is hopefully going to help you get started. If you want to get tab or notation to accompany this lesson, head over to my Patreon page. You can support this channel there, and like and subscribe this video, do all the things. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about a couple of strategies that I found have been really helpful for me on my soloing journey. So first things first is, you never really know kind of like what you're dealing with a band and a drummer, if someone's going to be playing chords behind you, if everybody's going to stop. But in general, there's usually some kind of groove being played under you, and we're going to have some kind of like harmonic thing to play to. So the very first thing is thinking about like, okay, what do I have from a rhythmic sense? You know, who's supporting me? And then what do I have from a harmonic sense? Rhythmically, you kind of have drums or metronome, something, and harmonically we're going to go with the prompt of just playing over one chord. So normally if you're soloing, people might give you like a 12-bar blues to solo over. They might give you a chord vamp of just, you know, going between two chords, like an A minor 7 to D7, or you might just be stationary on one chord. So for this lesson, we're going to speak about just staying on one chord. We're going to pick an E minor 7, which is just kind of like a really common thing to solo over. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to orient ourselves, because typically, you know, for solo, we want to take advantage of the full range of the instrument. You know, we have a lot of real estate here that we can cover. So what I like to do is kind of play around with a scale or something that will go with my harmonic prompt. So if we're dealing with an E minor 7, I'm going to go with like an E minor pentatonic or an E blues scale. So I'll kind of find my root, flat third, fourth. I'm going to add that chromatic note up to the fifth, the flat 7 to the octave, and I'm just going to kind of find this scale in a lot of different places around the fretboard. That's just our minor pentatonic. If we add in the bluesy note, that's kind of 2 octaves. I also realized like, hey, I might want to come to this higher register. I can find my E here. Come and play up to this like higher fifth. So you might say, oh, here's my E, there's the flat third, fourth, whoops, there it is, up to the fifth. And so kind of finding that move there is good. And I'm descending and just kind of orienting myself. So first tip to getting started with soloing is understand your harmonic prompt, meaning the chord you're playing over, and kind of take a moment to orient yourself in that key and with a scale that you might use, and kind of start to see things light up on the fretboard. I like to also target my root notes. So here's like a low E, middle E, high E, kind of the middle E, but here at the 12th fret, high E over here on the 9th fret, you know, so I'm just kind of like finding my root notes in different places. And then what I'm going to do is realize that, you know, a big part of soloing is coming up with phrases. So I'm going to think about creating like a short phrase that's nice and melodic that kind of uses some of these notes. And I'm going to start to like just find it on the fretboard and come up with something that is well articulated. So maybe I come up with a quick little phrase, something like that, you know, where basically what I'm doing is I'm playing into my fifth, sliding into it, playing the flat 7, sliding down from the 5th to the 4th, and then landing on the minor 3rd. So I'm going to start with this as just like kind of a basic theme to play off of. And the cool thing is now I can move this around where, you know, before when I moved the scale around, it's like, all right, that's cool, I'm finding my scales. But if I move this little phrase around, it just automatically is going to start to sound like music. You know, we can go there. I can go there. And just kind of getting comfortable by finding that phrase in different places. You know, I can go. Oh, interesting. That time I realized like, what if I played that phrase, but maybe ended it in a little bit of a different way, kind of played a call and response thing? That's a great way to start to build a theme. So this next step is saying, all right, I've picked a little phrase, I found it in different places. Now I want to take that phrase and maybe write a part 2 or come up with a different way to end it. And what I like to do too is think about how I'm ending it in terms of the scale tone that I'm using to resolve the phrase. Now, with that initial phrase, I'm kind of ending the phrase on this minor third. That's awesome because I'm not like landing on the root. So that means that when I write a part 2 or like a response, then I can choose to land on the root and it'll feel like the phrase has found resolution. So I might do something like this. This time I did a couple of things where I played the phrase first down here, resolving to my minor third. And then I adapted the phrase slightly and I made sure to end the phrase on this high root note. So that accomplishes quite a few goals here. It creates a development in terms of our phrase or our theme with a call and response. It also allows for the first phrase to end on a scale tone or a chord tone, and the second phrase to resolve on the root note. And then it also plays with register where, first I'm down here and then landing up here. So it's, again, kind of taking advantage of that real estate that we have on the fretboard. So to kind of just like break down the things that we've done in terms of getting started with the soloing concept, we've talked about what our harmonic prompt is, meaning the chord that we're playing over. We've talked about kind of targeting different parts of the neck and finding out where we can play things using a particular scale. And then we were talking about developing a short phrase that becomes this theme, and then learning how to kind of add a call and response to it, where maybe we adjust the ending of the theme to add resolution. So there are a couple cool things that you can do when you develop solos this way, and it's a great way to kind of just start building ideas. And I think that a lot of people kind of get a little bit nervous when they start soloing because they're just like not comfortable with moving around on the instrument, and playing scales becomes this like boxy thing. But you can see that one of the most important things that I'm doing is I'm adding that articulation to it. I'm not just playing something like that sounds all boxy. I'm like giving it feel by sliding into notes. I'm sliding into the fifth. I'm sliding down and landing there. And then same thing here. I'm kind of sliding into the fifth, going up to my seventh, up to my third, and then landing on the root note here. So the notion of bringing articulation to the party is a huge, huge thing. So just remember that as you're practicing your solos, as you're developing phrases, thinking about how to use, repeated notes, dead notes, slides, hammer-ons, all kinds of stuff like that. The techniques that we have available to us really kind of like help us create our voice on the instrument. So that's kind of a really good kind of rundown of things you can do to get started. Understand your harmonic prompt, play scales and things to orient yourself in different places on the fretboard, develop a short theme, come up with a response to that theme where maybe you've created a theme that ends on a chord tone and then you do the response where you end on the root note. And then think about how you bring in articulation and slides and cool things like that to kind of like add a vocal quality to what you're playing. So I hope you dug this. If you want to get tab notation, anything to help you out with this lesson, please head over to my Patreon page. You can find it there and support this channel. And in the meantime, happy practicing. Keep it groovy.